Hello, I'm Trevor, and these are our new low-profile SUV mounts. The mounts come as a set of 6. We have front, middle, and rear. They also come with a handy tool for installation and for using the mounts, and a hardware kit. The way these mounts work is that there's a portion that mounts to the tent. We're calling it the tent bushing, and then there's the bracket that mounts to the roof rack. The tent bushing is going to slide inside the groove of the mount, and then from there, there's a spring-loaded latch. This latch is going to close and retain it, so that way it can't come out. All right, we have this design on the front and the rear mounts, but the middle mounts is just simply a vertical support. So there's no retaining latch here. It's not needed. The value of these mounts is that you can use our included tool and reach in and physically open up and operate the latch without having to stick your hands in there. That's a very quick overview. We're going to go ahead and jump into the installation. What we're going to do is we're going to use some blocks. We're going to pick up the tent, put some blocks underneath, and then start sliding in the mounts and get them started. The tools required for this job is going to be a 7/16 wrench. Keep in mind that we also include a long handle 7/16. And then we're also going to need a 13 millimeter. I use a 13 millimeter ratchet with the socket. We're going to need a tape measure. And then lastly, a block of wood to be able to hold the tent. First part of the installation is to get the tent up on some blocks. And then from there, we actually remove the rear crossbar. We're just going to make things a lot easier. If you have a sunroof, then go ahead and open up the sunroof as well, because you're going to want to reach in. Otherwise, remove your T-tops. If you don't have any of that, you're going to have to take your front fairing off so you can get to the front mounts. All right, once all that's removed and we're ready to start working on the installation, we're going to start with tent bushings. Tent bushings have option A, B, and C different hardware. So we'll give more information on that. But essentially what we're looking for is there's a large fender washer that sits on top of the bushing. That's going to go underneath the tent rail. So I'm going to do 3 per side. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Now these have not been tightened up. What I'm going to go ahead and do is tighten up all these nuts while it's easy and accessible using my 13 millimeter ratchet. And I want to make sure that they can all slide. So all I'm doing is taking out the slack that's inside of that assembly. So we're starting in the very front passenger side. What we're going to do is we're going to install the 1/4-20 T-nuts. That's this part right here. We're going to drop 1 T-nut into each channel. Now some of these are a little tricky to get into. What I've found is if they're being stubborn, you can use a little L key, pop that in the hole and rotate it into position. So we're going to pop in 1 1/4-20 per side, ideally in diagonal corners. These are 1/4-20 by 1/2 inch screws. We're going to drop these into the holes. All right, here we are. I can see the T-nut right below me. I'm just going to drop that in and thread it till it starts. And as soon as there's some resistance, I'm going to stop. I want this to be able to slide freely. So I'm going to do that on one side and then a screw right on the other. I can see my T-nut over here. Kind of slide that into position. Thread it in. Now, make sure those T-nuts are engaged. It's really easy to get it started and not actually work. So by doing that, I'm going to do a slide. And if I slide it back and forth and I can see the T-nut moves with it, that's good feedback that things are looking good. So that one's done. Like I said, make sure the slot's towards the rear. The slide assembly is toward the outside. We're going to do the same thing on all the corners. So Some roof racks are different. This is an 80/20 style roof rack, the 2x1 inch extrusion. It's got 2 slots that accept 1/4-20 or M6 hardware. Not all roof racks have that. Some of them take an M8 or 5/16 hex head. So with that, you would slide in the M8 screw into the slot and slide it down into position, just like this. And you can either use the front hole or the rear hole for that application, depending on what works better for your setup. So here's an example of how it would go in. The hex head would be down in the slot. Then from there, you take the flat washers, drop on the 2 flat washers, and then the lock nuts, slide that onto the place. And this one as well. This is the middle mount. We're going to do the same process as before, drop in T-nuts in diagonal corners and then run in the 1/4-20 screws. Now, what we've spoke with quite a few manufacturers, and they all pretty much recommend the same thing. They suggest using crossbars that are closest to the body mounts, the roof mounts. So for us, that is right here near the center. If you have a gutter mount system, try and use crossbars that actually attach to the roof rack itself. That's going to give you the most rigidity. All right, when you have these parts in place, then go ahead and slide your bushings in earlier. Ideally you want them to land, a few inches or say 6 inches back, but behind the bracket. So on every side, you want it to be behind it. So this one's going to go all the way to the front. Okay, and then here's my middle one. And then the rear one, I'm going to position behind the rear mount. We have all 6 mounts in the position where they need to be. Next thing is get the alignment. So we're going to remove the blocks of wood, drop the tent down, get it centered to where we want, and then one by one, we're going to seat the bushing inside the mount. Before you do this step, make sure that all 4 latches are in the open position because we're going to shove the bushing into the bracket and get everything aligned, and then go from each mount and tighten them up. Next step is to slide the bushings into all 6 mounts. So I can see here that the slot is actually not even lined up. I'm going to pick this up, get that lined up, and then take my bushing and slide it in. Once it's slid in, I'm going to go in and release the latch. Make sure the bushing is seated all the way down. The latch is in the released position. And then from there, we're going to go and tighten up all the fasteners once it's all in position. The center mounts are the most difficult to get to. The reason is because there's no access all the way around. It's equivalent of changing spark plugs on the back 2 cylinders that are up against the firewall. You can't see them. You can barely reach in there. So this part's going to take patience. If you're having a bad day, maybe time to take a pause, have a cool beverage, because this next part is going to take a steady hand and a little bit of patience. Fortunately, we've included a tool to be able to do this. So currently what we've done is we have all 4 corners seated. The bushings are all seated in the bracket and they're all in the latched position. The next thing we have is the center. The center, what we have to do is the bushing is currently outside. I'm going to use my tool. I'm going to stick it in, reach in, and I'm going to physically knock the bushing into the bracket. Ideally, you're using the long reach tool just for the center bracket and to tighten it up. The front and the rear, best case scenario, you have access. We have a moonroof in this 4Runner, so we're just going to open up the moonroof, reach in with a standard wrench. It's a really easy breeze. The rear, all we have to do is remove the back crossbar. We can easily reach in and tighten up everything. It's so much faster when you have access. This is a detailed view of what's going on. This is the middle mount, and we're trying to get the bushing seated in the bracket like this. So currently, here's the outside of the roof rack. I'm reaching in with the tool, and then I'm tapping this bushing until it's all the way seated. A trick is you might need to lift up on the tent because the tent itself is pushing pressure and weight onto it. Once it's fully seated, we want to tighten up one bolt, okay? We don't need to tighten up the other bolt because it's almost impossible to get to it. But if we can tighten up this one bolt, at least snug, then we can pop the tent off, put it back on blocks, and easily get in there and tighten it. But this is the critical alignment step. We have a 7/16 wrench on one side and a 13mm wrench on the other side. What we've done is we've designed this tool so that you can reach in, grab onto the head of the hex head, and then rotate it to tighten it up, pop it off, just like that. This should be thin enough to be able to spin it, come back in, grab it again, tighten it a little more, and this is the real tedious part of the whole process. If you had a long ratcheting wrench, that might be the best way. One other thing is, if you're using the 1/4-20 with T-nuts, then you're going to use the 7/16. If you're using the M8 bolt kit, you're going to use the 13mm. Here's a few pointers. Be careful with this wrench. If you look at it, the length is substantially longer. Also means you can easily apply a lot more torque onto it. These are only 1/4-20 screws or even M8s. So you can easily over tighten and even shear off the head. So all we need to do in this step is just to get them snug. We want to get them snug because we want the position to be set. Once position set, Then we can slide the tent back, get it out of the way, and then go in there with a normal wrench and tighten everything up. So I'm not going to use this tool to tighten up the center bushing. The center bushing can actually stay loose. I just wanted it to be seated in the bracket so that it has all the alignment, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to grab a measurement and then figure out exactly where that center bushing needs to be. But when you're using this tool, really the only thing we're using it for is to tighten up one screw or one bolt per bracket, ideally the easiest one that you can get to. Every bracket has at least one tight bolt onto it. Additionally, the front and the rear bushings have been tightened down as well. We were able to reach in to tighten them. At this point, we're going to slide the tent back off, put it on blocks or remove it, and now we have great access to be able to tighten up all the fasteners and get everything snug. The latches are in the open position. At this point, I'm ready to pull the tent back. On this step, please be very careful. Some handles aren't rated for being pulled on, so you may have to, hold on to something secure. But ideally, we're just going to give it a quick tug and kind of make sure it's broken free. And then once it's free, then the whole tent needs to come back about 3 to 4 inches. At that point, then the tent can be lifted vertically. So at this point, we're unlatched. We're going to put the blocks in, and that way we can reach in and tighten up everything. Safety is definitely one of our concerns. If this isn't coming free, we don't want you to put all your weight onto it and then the handle break off and you go flying back. So you really need to be careful in this step. If anything, if it's not breaking free, give it a jig. With these blocks of wood on here, I can easily reach in and tighten up that inaccessible bolt for that middle bracket. Additionally, I can tighten up the bushing and set it where it needs to be. A helpful tip for setting up where the center bushing needs to go. I actually found that grabbing the UHMW pads, which is those black plastic pads, taking the tape measure from the very front of the front mount, running it to that center mount, and getting a measurement from the tip of the pad to the tip of the pad, then going over to the bushings and set that position of the bushing exactly where that needs to be. I'm working on the last side now, going through and making sure that all the fasteners are tight. So the 1/4 20 fasteners, going through with the wrench, tighten them, making sure they're tight. One thing that we really want you to be careful with is the bushing, the tent bushings. Those need to be tight. We recommend 13 foot-pounds of torque. And one way to kind of do a sanity check is if that tent bushing can move by hand, that's a problem. Alrighty, folks. Guess what? You have officially done the hard part. From this point on, you shouldn't have to mess with this again. Our alignment's going to be set every time. So we have the tent gear in the back position. All I got to do is slide the tent all the way forward until it seats up against those bushings. Aha, there we are. And now the easy part, I can go around with the tool and release all of the latches, put them back into the trail mode. There goes the first one. We're going to go around and do it all 3 corners. At that point, you are ready to hit the trail. Don't forget to put your rear crossbar on, anything else that you had taken off of your vehicle. Make sure it's all roadworthy. Don't make sure you didn't leave any tools laying around. Other than that, the installation's complete. Congratulations for making it this far.